Hello, I'm Sheridan Linnell. I'm the chief editor for the Journal of Creative Arts Therapies. And when I sat down at the beginning of today in my workspace, I rather habitually reached for the keyboard and began to type words onto a screen. Then I found myself wondering why I was doing that. Why, given that the Journal of Creative Arts Therapies is a journal that is very interested in all of the arts as a form of inquiry into the practices of the creative arts therapies, and that we aim to be a journal that presents research and practice in the CATs in multimodal and diverse ways. Why I assumed that the editorial itself needed to be a written one. When I realized that wasn't necessarily the case, I changed tack. And so I'm speaking to you, it's now the afternoon, from Durrock and Gundungurra country in what's become known as the Blue Mountains, an area in a national park on the western fringe of Sydney, Australia. And I want to begin by expressing my respect and my gratitude to the traditional owners and the elders of this land that I'm privileged to live upon. Land that was never ceded, land that was stolen. Strangely, I can look out above my computer screen through the window to the very view that's also captured in the photograph I took, and which I'm using as a virtual background today. I'm also speaking with you through a platform that many of us have come to value and at times love and hate with deep ambivalence during 3 long years of a pandemic. I'm recording this using Zoom because I've become very familiar with Zoom, as many of you have. There are, of course, other virtual platforms and other ways of recording, but this is a common and simple one. And in doing this, I immediately want to go into another habit because I work in a university. I practiced for many years as an art therapist, and now my role is as discipline lead at this university, and part of that has enabled me to embrace the partnership with the Australian, New Zealand and Asian Creative Arts Therapy Association that makes it possible to bring JoCAT to you as an open access online platform for sharing in our excitement, our ideas, the possibilities for the creative arts therapy. So I'm trying not to feel like I'm giving a lecture. I'm trying to feel more like I'm having a conversation. At risk of feeling even more like this editorial is turning into a mini lecture. I'm going to share my screen because I think some of the contributions to this issue of JoCAT, as we love to call it, speak best for themselves. If you're listening to the admittedly slightly bumbling start to this spoken editorial, you've probably found yourself on the landing page for JoCAT Volume 17, Number 1. And you may have been here earlier started to browse some of the content and seen that little promise there in the bottom right hand corner of the page that says editorial coming soon. So perhaps the best way to talk about this JoCat is through the images that some of our authors have included. And Amy Bell, a cartoonist, art therapist, and for that matter, midwife, Amy has long communicated through an alter ego whom she calls Daisy. Daisy's not particularly prominent in the image that I've included here, but you can see Daisy wearing a yellow star, smiling. Her eyes perhaps closed. Is it in a kind of bliss? Somewhere towards the bottom left-hand area of this image, but it's not so much that I want to quote Daisy as I'd like to echo the words of every woman, and every woman wearing the red spotted orange dress, purple tights, and with the spiky black hair, says, "It is very therapeutic to make cartoons in which you can be full of courage and possess a rapier-like wit." I was very touched to see just how many such alter egos, drawn figures, cartoons, and other representations of art therapists' senses of self were animating, quite literally and symbolically animating the pages, the virtual pages of this current issue of JoCat. We know that the arts therapies are healing, although it's also our job as writers and researchers to show that in a way that can be more broadly recognized. And as part of that, cartooning is indeed healing, and Amy's work always brings a smile to my face. It has depth, it has humor, and a kind of complexity that's sometimes belied by the form. And I think it's interesting too that as we have, shall we say, pivoted in order to respond to the pandemic and numerous lockdowns, JoCat has in many ways become a forum for an arts-informed inquiry into how we can possibly respond, being people who love to move, to make, to sing, to dance, to sit quietly in the same visceral space as the people who come to meet with us. How we've coped. And of course, I'm attempting to reproduce some of that in speaking to you this way today in all its imperfection. How we've pivoted, how we have crossed that river, how, in effect, we have placed the very stepping stones that we have then trodden upon. Just like this small, I would say, girlish figure in the digital drawing offered here by Naomi Pears-Scown, one of our authors. And then Sophia Savag also took up cartooning as a way to articulate her learning about research through an arts-informed autoethnography. And she offers a different idea of research data to the conventional idea that data should always consist of something that's either quantified or coded. For Sophia Sabag, data, which by the way in Latin means that which is given, and I particularly love that definition of data as datum, a gift, that which is given, from the Latin. Data, says Sophia, is what I observe, smell, feel, taste, hear, and everything in between. And she quotes Sean McNiff about this. The arts offer sensible signs of experience, presenting what can be seen, heard, felt, and understood, the meaning of evidence. How this generates new world views or perspectives, how they're revealed when one's assumed perspective is rearranged, and it's quite literally visually rearranged here, when relationships are considered between unlikely things in our worlds, when so many connections are made. And one realizes then that one's worldview is limited by how you come to know something. And so coming to know through the arts radically broadens our perspectives, makes them more radically inclusive of diversity, of marginalized peoples and epistemologies. Birds, fish, people, lobster-like sea creatures, art materials, rainbows, rain, sun, cloud, all, if you like, to take up the new materialist perspectives that seep their way into the work of some of our authors for this issue. All of these interact, diffract, create new possibilities. So this seems to me to be the flavor of this issue of Anstat. So moving now from something figurative that started off with the transformed human figures in cartoons through the interaction of other than human creatures and things, now moving into the way that there can be an abstract material response that catches a sense of emotion and relationship. In this case, a response to living with pain in the work of Kelsey Cross. And in the way that aesthetics can link perspectives as much as themes, this leads me on to another work where the pain is the pain of grief and loss, and where those brilliant blues are repeated, where they're highlighted with the preciousness of gold leaf, with the waving, organic, transitional matter of seaweed mixed with acrylic paint on, and I love the name of this, cotton rag paper, in the work of Ursula Donovan. From here, from this abstraction, we come to a photograph of water brushed onto skin, where the body of the artist herself or themselves becomes the canvas for a response. From here, we join Helena Dalton, who asks many pertinent questions about what it means for her as a Maori woman to have been separated from her ancestral lands for large portions of the pandemic, how this caused her to question her identity and to find her ground through various practices and perspectives drawn from a hybridity of her interest in yoga, in movement, and her own traditions. Helena, with a group of students and staff from Whitecliff College, also looked to anchor themselves through material practices of art and word making and movement and music and dance. And here, the string, woven together as string is from many strands, reminds us of the many strands that are woven together in the research and practice in JoCAT.